Greetings and salutations, everybody. I got a strange one here for you for an entry which will hopefully turn into more than one entry. So as I begin my trip to Tromaville. So for those unfamiliar, Troma at the time of this video is the longest running independent film company in North America, with a slogan on their site stating that they're crossing 48 years of disrupting media. So they had some sexy comedies back in the 70s, a new kind of warped and mutated superhero in the toxic Avenger in the 80s, and they continue to kind of push the limits throughout the 90s and even currently through today. If I had to kind of sum up what my experience has been so far, with checking these out, is I would say twisted, disgusting, and intentionally fun, low-budget horror and 50s sci-fi inspired films. It's a whole mouthful there. But if you have any familiarity, you would at least likely know of the Toxic Avenger, or maybe even the class of Nukem High. But perhaps you know about Romeo and Juliet, or Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, or even Poltergeist. So in a previous video of mine, the reason why I kind of came across this, I did this video for VHS Massacre and VHS Massacre 2, which was distributed by Troma Films. And I saw some interesting interviews with one of the founders, the man, the myth, the legend, Lloyd Kaufman. And it really got me kind of thinking about, these films that I hadn't seen in a long time, and that there were a lot of titles that I'd just never gotten around to seeing. I'd seen Toxic Avenger and I'd seen Class of Nukem High, like way back in the day. And I'd been meaning not just to kind of revisit those, but to kind of explore like all these other ones in the catalog that I'd kind of, never got around to over the years. So, one of the reasons why I missed out, of course, as stated in the VHS Massacre documentaries, was because of these big VHS rental companies that were not only refusing to carry Troma films, but they were pushing those smaller mom and pop places out of business that did hold those films. So it's getting, harder and harder to even track down any of the films that they had to offer because of like the rental industry kind of being taken over by the big giant companies. So when I decided to check these out again, I debated getting like a free 1-week trial of their TromaNOW app, which is their site and their app where they have all of their content. But I decided against it because I looked at what was on there. There was so much content. I just went ahead and just signed up for a full month because it's only $5 anyways. I figured, let me just unlock this for an entire month, see what I can dive into and enjoy, and that way I don't feel rushed to try to check out too much in 1 week. But before I continue and go into, much more detail on this, let me just make something clear with some of the terminology that I'm going to be using. Terms like low budget or cheap, cheesy, really disgusting or gross, vomit-inducing, and offensive. All of these terms I use in a very endearing way. These films contain a lot which can very easily be categorized using one of those terms, and it is intentional and it's wonderful because these aren't your big budget Hollywood conglomerate mega productions, and they don't pretend to be. In fact, they even make a lot of sarcastic jokes about those large companies and those giant productions and the franchises that they run. Even though Lloyd Kaufman himself did show up in a little film called Guardians of the Galaxy, seeing as it was directed by James Gunn, and James Gunn, along with his brother Sean Gunn, who were, in these Guardians of the Galaxy movies and directing them and working on them, that also worked with Troma in the past, with Sean Gunn actually being in Romeo and Juliet. That's where I first came across him. A little indie film that I worked on called The Auteur Theory. He was on it as well. We kind of considered him our star because he was on the cover of a Troma DVD. But anyways, now that long introduction is out of the way, what this video is about, it's basically what Troma is, and this is like my first week or two kind of exploring their catalog. So, as I said, I'd seen a Toxic Avenger and the class of Nukem High way back in the day, but little did I know they made more of them, many more of them. So, what was the experience like kind of rewatching those two entries I'd seen and exploring the ones that I hadn't? Well, it was great. I mean, it really was amazing fun, especially because as I was kind of tweeting about what I was watching with other people that I know on Twitter, Lloyd Kaufman himself was even interacting with me. He was liking stuff, commenting on it, sharing and quoting tweets and everything. And that also brought in a lot of interaction from other Troma fans who were then commenting with some of their favorite titles and other suggestions of ones to check out. It was like really supportive that just because I was checking this out and tweeting about it, everybody wanted to get on top of that and be like, oh, well, you got to check out this one, you got to check out that one, this one right here is great. It was really cool. So anyways, for Toxic Avenger specifically, a quick and dirty synopsis for this franchise would be, in the town of Tromaville, a scrawny guy, this is Tromaville in New Jersey, a scrawny guy is bullied, he's teased a lot and mocked, and he ends up falling into a barrel of toxic waste. This kind of mutates him into New Jersey's first superhero, the Toxic Avenger. That's pretty much all you need to know. And no, it's not based on a true story. But he spends the film basically just killing bad guys who are terrorizing the citizens of Tromaville. Massive violence takes place against some very deplorable bad guys. And I mean bad. They are racist, sexist, homophobic, and murderous. They really set these guys up to be bad. So bad that the disgusting ways in which our titular hero dispatches them, I could easily cheer along with, because you want to see how these bad guys are taken out. You want to see what kind of gets them because they are so horrible. So you put up with all that grossness because it's kind of funny seeing them, get what they deserve. So, the film has a very retro and low budget look, of course, because of when it was made. And it looks a little bit more like if just like a whole bunch of friends or family just, got together and tried to make this twisted movie, just having some fun with it. And it really works great. It's a lot of fun. We get graphic violence, graphic gore, we get a lot of nudity, we get sexual assault, we get offensive language, we get all this to go along with what is not only a truly disgusting film, and again, I mean that in the best possible way, but one that surprisingly has quite a bit of heart in it. You actually care about what's going on with these characters and, everybody who made this movie. And there were sequels. Part 2 I really enjoyed. This one involves Toxie going to Japan by way of windsurfing, which one does, to search for his long-lost father and getting mixed up in some of the crime happening over there. My only issue with that, of course, is that I missed Tromaville. I missed the Tromaville and the citizens and everything happening there. But then in Part 3, which I loved as well, we get back into Tromaville. Most of it taking place, directly in Tromaville, where Toxic gets involved with this evil corporation to try to make some money for an eye surgery for his girlfriend who is blind. He turns into basically like the most disgusting bad guy himself, kind of getting corrupted in the process, and as he becomes an 80s style uber capitalist New York yuppie. I told you it was horrible. It's really sad, but don't worry, it all works out in the end. And then down the line, years later, we get Part 4, Citizen Toxie, which was more recent, of course. This is from 2000, and another one kind of keeping within Tromaville and involving this alternate reality of like these doppelgangers which come through and must be defeated. Another one that's really a lot of fun, and it does not hold back on any of the grossness or anything that led those first 3 films our way. All 4 of these were really a lot of fun. Some of them were covered on a video saw about a week before I got into these by Minty Comedic Arts, which I will link to in the description, which goes into a lot more detail about the Toxic Avenger, including a cartoon spin-off called The Toxic Crusaders, which I've yet to check out, but that also is on the TromaNOW app, so I'm going to be queuing that up soon. So of course the first one I would say is the best, but I think that's just because of nostalgia and you get that origin when everybody's kind of first introduced. It's a lot of fun, but they were all a lot of fun as well. But I didn't watch them all in a row. I kind of mixed them in with the Class of Nukem High films, of which there are 5 entries for those. So here's some quick info about Class of Nukem High. Nuclear waste is contaminating a school, and especially like this drug supply that the kids are purchasing off of some of these factory workers at the nuclear power site, and weird stuff happens. It's hard to really even say much more than that because it's a bit more random. Like the Toxic Avenger, I remember vaguely certain scenes about this from back in the day, but it had been so long that most of it I'd forgotten. It feels a little bit less centralized and linear in its storytelling than the Toxic Avenger did, but it feels more like a random ensemble of strange situations kind of stitched together into the story, but we get some really cool, gross stuff in that as well. The second one, even more so with the craziness, but the second one starts to focus a little bit more on a specific character or two. So it's got a little bit more direction, because of these characters that get a little bit more screen time over the rest of the cast. But yeah, so those were for the second 2. So those first 3 were a lot of fun, but like, Toxie, I kind of gravitated more towards the first one for the same nostalgic reason. Years later, like several years later, we got a new sequel to the first one. They basically ignored parts 2 and 3 and just did another sequel to part 1, called Return to Nukem High Volume 1. This is where things really get strange, and not just in the gross and offensive stuff kind of thrown in, but in the film itself. So compared to the previous ones, this one and the sequel a few years later, the Return to Nukem High Volume 2, I'm getting the title right, the filming techniques were different. Everything looked a lot more polished. There was even some CG thrown in to kind of enhance some of the scenes. So it had a very different look than the earlier works, not just for Class of Nukem High, but for previous stuff that I'd seen in Toxic Avenger. But it was almost like that clarity of the film kind of made all those disgusting effects really stick out a whole lot more. And then the CG was used to push it even further, stuff that you just wouldn't be able to do practically. To say that the 5 Nukem High films were an interesting journey would be a great understatement. They pushed and pushed, and the limits, they pushed and pushed the limits, and they went further than expected, even given the previous films. But these films, like the 4 Toxie ones as well, they need to be viewed with the right mindset, I feel like. If you decide to check these out, the biggest ideas to keep in mind are they are intentionally cheesy and silly. They are intentionally as gross and as offensive as possible. It feels like the production is a group of friends or family just having fun putting together the wildest scenarios they can to tell some of the strangest stories. There'll be parts of the films and certain entries that you really love and enjoy. There'll also be some that kind of fall flat, and that's all right. But just go in with an open mind, go in open-minded and interested in seeing something very strange that, something like you've never really seen before, and just have fun like I did. All of these are available on one platform or another. I think Night Flight has some, and I believe Tubi does have some of the entries as well for free. It's all ad-based. But really the TromaNOW app is where it's at, because like I said, they offer like a free week, sometimes they have a free month, but a month is only $5. So if you do decide to pay for it, it's very little money to get in there and hop in and just start checking out some of those films. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest little video of mine, which would be the first involving Troma. Let me put in a little bit more here because I forgot a few things. So, I checked out some other titles such as Tromeo and Juliet, Poultry Guys, Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. So I do plan on doing some videos about those as well. So there'll definitely be a second installment to this. But I just had the pleasure of actually meeting Lloyd Kaufman at the time of this video. This would be yesterday. This past weekend at the Spooky Empire Mayhem Convention out in Orlando. So quick word on that before wrapping this up. First off, the experience was great because they set up this room that also had some of the cast of the Terrifier films in there, and Lloyd's corner was pretty packed. There was a lot of people kind of filling in that corner, and with everybody in line there, it just felt like you're hanging out with a bunch of friends who somehow you'd never met before. Like, we all enjoy this weird stuff, so we got that major thing in common, and you're able to have some really great conversation and meet some great people. Lloyd himself was very kind and funny. He's signing everything, posing for all these pictures, handing out free month coupons for TromaNOW to try to promote that, and the Troma team working the booth and organizing the line and kind of keeping everybody, up to speed of what's going on. They were amazing as well. They were really a fun group of people who were great to spend some time with, and I really hope that I get to see them again at another event. But by the end of the day, I ended up buying this shirt. Of course, I got this bumper sticker I'm going to put on the back of my car soon. And I even got this set of all 4 of the Toxic Avenger movies signed by him. And I also got this cool Toxic Crusaders metal plaque that I had Lloyd sign. And it was interesting because nobody there had seen them because they were so old or whatever, but some vendor out on the floor had them, and I bought the last one. It was totally worth it, so I got that signed as well. But yeah, it was really great to meet everybody there. They really are awesome. So of course, when I came home, that's when I decided to queue up Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, but that will be in another video, and yes, it's just as weird as that title sounds. But anyways, back to a quick summary to get back to my speaking of checking out kind of ending. Funny, gross films with some interesting stories. Always pushing the limit, working with a very low budget, so there's a lot of heart and hard work kind of poured into all these titles. It is not for everyone. I definitely understand that. And even if you like many of them, I'm sure there'll be some titles that don't land as well, while other ones you'll absolutely adore, hopefully. basically Troma is very worth checking out if you want something very different and entertaining, made by a group of awesome people for quite the eclectic and fun fan base. So that's about all that I have for this entry. I know it's a little bit longer than usual, even though I said to be quick at the beginning. But anyways, just want to thank you for sticking around to the end. Be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon to get notifications when I put up new content, which is usually once or twice a week. Do the whole, like, comment, share, all that stuff really helps out quite a bit. And I will see you in the next one.